What's up, fight fans? This is episode 3 of Anchored Aggression. I'm Brett Cagle, joined by Anthony Ballister. We've got a huge fight week ahead of us. Francis Ngannou is taking on Anthony Joshua on Friday night, and then we have one of the biggest UFC pay-per-views of the entire year on Saturday with UFC 299. Anthony, which one do you want to talk about first?
We can start with the other stuff before we get into the UFC.
Oh, okay. So there was really a big announcement today with Jake Paul. He's going to be taking on Mike Tyson on Netflix in July. I'm not a huge fan of this matchup. Tyson's going to be 58 years old. It's been 2 years since he fought Roy Jones. There's going to be a huge discrepancy in age and also speed, and I think this is going to be a one-sided fight. What do you think about it?
Honestly, when I first saw the notification on my phone, I didn't believe it. I thought it was fake. I never thought that these two guys would actually sign on and actually get pen to paper and make this a real thing. But I'm actually really excited for it. I think this will be Jake Paul's toughest matchup to date. I think Mike Tyson still's got the power. He's definitely still got great speed and reaction time for his age. We see the videos. He's still got, 70% of what he used to have. I think Jake Paul is obviously proved that he's got knockout power as well. With the age, he'll have the advantage in reaction time and speed. But Mike Tyson will have the advantage in weight and the advantage in power. So it's going to be interesting to see how those guys, fight each other.
Yeah, one thing that I was looking at in this one was how Evander Holyfield and Vitor Belfort ended last year. Evander Holyfield was knocked out in the first round. Evander actually holds wins over Mike Tyson. And Vitor Belfort's not really a credentialed boxer. He was a good boxer on MMA terms, but was able to get rid of Holyfield just based on being a better athlete at the time of the fight that it went out, because Holyfield's reaction time and also he didn't have any power in his punches. He couldn't even get one going. So Vitor really ran through him, and I don't really like seeing these older boxers get in there. And we saw Roy Jones recently lose to Anthony Pettis as well. So I like Jake in this fight a lot.
Yeah, honestly, I actually disagree. Obviously, I can see why most people are going to pick Jake Paul to win it. But just in my head, I can't see Jake Paul winning a boxing match against Mike Tyson. Even with the age gap, it just doesn't sound right, even if it is possible. So honestly, I think Mike Tyson is going to get the win. I just think that he's got too much power. I just think that he's too much of a good boxer for Jake Paul. I don't think Jake Paul's at that level, even with the age gap. But I'm definitely excited to see it, and I wouldn't be surprised for it to go either way. And it's nice to see Jake Paul's journey, because honestly, the first time most people saw him was fighting Nate Robinson on the undercard for a main event that Mike Tyson was headlining. So it's nice to see his journey now, and to see now will he fighting Mike Tyson in the main event.
Yeah, I just can't see Tyson, being as powerful as he used to be. He hasn't had a win in over 10 years, so I really like Jake in that one. But what do you make of it being on Netflix? That's certainly interesting that a streaming service is now getting into combat sports. Showtime closed last year. Do you think Netflix is going to be a major player moving forward?
Yeah, I was honestly shocked about that. I'm not surprised to actually see Netflix get into the live, TV world. They want to compete with Hulu Live and everything else. But for them to come out with a boxing pay-per-view, obviously, that's a lot different than what we've seen other streaming services done. So it's definitely very interesting for them to go this route. It's going to be interesting to see if they actually get more money and get more sales this way. I honestly think it actually will get more eyes on them, because I think a lot more people are going to subscribe to Netflix. There's already so many people that already do have Netflix. So honestly, I think there's going to be more eyeballs on this fight because of it. And honestly, I think because of that, they may, have a bigger amount of money that will be dished out.
Yeah, I can't wait for the lead up to this fight, too. I'm sure they're going to have these guys on First Take, sitting there with Stephen A. Smith and all over ESPN and stuff. So it'll certainly be interesting leading up to it in July. Also in the boxing world, we have Francis Ngannou taking on Anthony Joshua this Friday, tomorrow night. What do you think about Ngannou? He really burst on the scene against Tyson Fury, scored that knockdown, wasn't given the win. Some people thought that he won the fight. I had it scored for Fury, but it was a very close and competitive fight. Fury showed up out of shape for that fight. Anthony Joshua is a great athlete as well. How do you see this one going?
I want to say Ngannou might win because he definitely fought really, really close with Tyson Fury. I think Tyson Fury probably definitely won the match. But for his first boxing match to even be competitive with Tyson Fury is unbelievable. And I think Tyson Fury is a much better boxer than Anthony Joshua at this point. So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see Francis shock the world again. And honestly, at this point, I don't think anything Francis Ngannou does will surprise me. For a guy to come in and get the knockdown on a guy like Tyson Fury, that really shocked me, and I don't see, I don't see why people would not thought he won the fight. I thought Francis Ngannou did enough to possibly win the fight. So for the people that thought Francis won, I'm not, shocked, and I don't disagree with that. I think he could have went either way. But for him to almost beat Tyson, I think that's good enough to warrant him being the favorite to beat Joshua, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's going to enter as a 4-1 dog at online sports books. Joshua is the better pure boxer than Ngannou, but Ngannou has that one-punch knockout power that everyone has to pay attention to. So if he can land on Anthony Joshua clean, he can put him down. We saw Joshua got knocked out by Andy Ruiz a few fights ago, but he's rebounded well since then. Lost to Usyk, but he just picked up a win in Saudi Arabia on that same card that Parker fought Wilder. So it's going to be an interesting fight. My money's on Joshua. I think he gets it done by decision. I think Francis will be tough enough to survive, but I think Joshua's boxing skills, including a jab and being able to manage distance a little better, in boxing will give him the edge in this fight.
And honestly, one final note I would say on Joshua's end, I think and what's working in his favor is, Tyson Fury, I think, kind of took Francis Ngannou lightly. I think in his first boxing match, he wasn't giving him much of a chance. So I think his training camp wasn't super, super disciplined. And I think because Francis Ngannou surprised everybody, I think on the flip side, I don't think Anthony Joshua is going to take him lightly. I think he's going to go full force and try to, treat this as if he is fighting a top contender. So the thing is that's going to hurt Francis Ngannou is he's not going to be, catching anybody on surprise. So that could definitely help out Anthony Joshua. And we've seen Anthony Joshua, when he's out at his best, he's one of the best in the world. But sometimes when he's not at his best, we've seen him lose to a guy like Ruiz Jr. So we've definitely seen that he can have his moments, but he also can have his disappointments as well. But I think Francis Ngannou is going to shock the world. And I just could never bet against Francis Ngannou and his power. And I think at some point in the fight, he's going to survive and he's going to land that shot, one way or another in that fight. And I think that's all it's going to take for him to win.
That would certainly be something, but I'd have to say if he does do that, I don't think we ever see him in mixed martial arts again.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he's already opened so many windows, and if he wins that, I mean, who knows? We obviously are going to see, Oscar and Tyson Fury fight for undisputed. We could see, the winner of that maybe wanting to fight Francis Ngannou. That'd be such a big name, and who knows? That could be where we're heading. Like, if he definitely wins that fight, there's too much money in boxing for him to make to ever even consider probably going to the PFL.
Yeah, I'd really like to see the winner of this fight between Joshua and Francis fight the winner of Usyk and Fury when that fight goes down in May. So it's a good time to be a boxing fan, and there's certainly a lot of good heavyweights out there right now. So let's get into UFC 299, man. This is a massive card that we've got ahead of us, one of the biggest pay-per-views in UFC history. In the main event, we have Sean O'Malley taking on Chito Vera for the bantamweight title. In their first matchup, Chito got the job done. Leg kick ended it after ground and pound. Sean O'Malley's leg gave out, and then Chito finished it on top. How do you think this one goes? Do you think it's a similar thing happens where Chito gets the job done against Sean? He's going to enter this fight as a 3-1 underdog.
I think it's definitely going to go differently. I agree with Sean O'Malley. I think Chito Vera got lucky in the first match. He definitely deserves credit for hurting Sean's leg. But I think if Sean's leg didn't get messed up, I think he would actually have won that fight eventually. He probably would have been undefeated. And I think this matchup suits him perfectly. I think he's going to come in, he's going to be the best he's ever been. He's going to train really, really hard in this fight. And I think he's going to get the best of Chito. Honestly, out of all the contenders they could have gave Sean O'Malley, Chito Vera was probably the weakest one. But unfortunately, with Corey Sandhagen dealing with injuries and the fact that, he could avenge his only loss, so that's a good selling point. They do want to have Sean O'Malley and try to squeeze as much as they can out of him, so as many pay-per-views as they can get with him as a title holder. they're definitely going to try to get as many of those. And they didn't want to just throw him in against a Merab and lose his first title defense. So they could have him fight Cheeto, sell on the fact that that's his only loss. Sean O'Malley gets an easy win. I think he's going to get a knockout win in probably the third round. And then he gets another title shot later in the year against Merab. And the UFC gets to make as much money as they can from Sean.
Yeah, this is certainly going to be a great striking matchup between two guys who are very creative and dynamic. We've seen Cheeto knock out Dominic Cruz and Frankie Edgar with head kicks. Sean O'Malley, I think, is going to have an advantage in punching power here. We just saw him knock out former champion Aljamain Sterling to win the title at Madison Square in Boston. So, I like Sean O'Malley in this one as well. I think he gets it done by decision. Cheeto's never been finished in his career, but he also has 10 subs. So I don't think he's going to take the fight to the ground. I don't see this fight really going to the ground, but I think it's going to be a striking battle that fight fans are really going to enjoy. It's a great main event here in Miami, and I'm really excited for this main event of UFC 299.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I've always been a huge fan of Sugar Sean O'Malley, and I kind of agree with him. I don't think he's as big, or no one will ever be as big as Conor McGregor, but I definitely think he's starting to become, the top build and the top guy for the UFC. And right now, his popularity and his fans are at an all-time high. And, the Sugar Sean fans are going to come out there and they're going to be cheering him on. And UFC is going to make a lot of money for a long time off of Sugar Sean. I think he's going to get the job done here. And I think we're going to be seeing him fight at the end of the year against Merab.
Yeah, both of these guys, Cheeto and Sean, have huge fan bases. There's a huge Latin American fan base down in Miami that seemed to have support for Cheeto today at the press conference. And then Sean O'Malley seems to be everyone's favorite guy right now, and as far as influencers are concerned, and podcasts and that sort of thing, he's always in the media. So Sean O'Malley's maybe the next big star in the UFC. Like you said, some people are comparing him to Conor McGregor, but he's got to get the job done this weekend, and he's got to avenge his only loss. So I like O'Malley by decision, like we were saying, and I'm just really excited for this main event matchup.
Yeah, me too. And even though, like I said, it was probably the weakest contender, it's definitely going to be a very exciting fight either way. And, no one's going to be surprised to see Cheeto get the win. The way he fights, he could win any fight at any moment. It takes one strike or one land of a kick for him to completely, change a fight. And like you said, with the submissions, he could kind of beat you either way. So, you definitely got to give him respect. He's a top 5 contender for a reason. And I'm definitely very excited for this fight, even though I do think Sugar Sean O'Malley will win. It's definitely a fight that should get the fans excited.
So, historically, Cheeto's kind of a slow starter, and he's won some of these fights in the back end while losing. If you go back and watch the Frankie Edgar fight, some people think that was a really close fight before he eventually got that knockout. And Sean O'Malley is a quick starter, so he really likes to get fast finishes. Do you think that the longer that this fight goes, it actually favors Cheeto?
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. Cheeto's definitely a guy who looks better in the later rounds. And I think with Sugar Sean, I think he likes to try to win fights in the early rounds. So I think as the fight goes on, it definitely favors Cheeto. So that's why I think Sugar Sean was probably going to win by KO in the third round. But yes, Sugar Sean's going to want to get in and get out of here. And the longer the fight goes, the longer and the more favors Cheeto. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see, maybe O'Malley get the first 2 rounds, but then Cheeto comes out in the last 3 and maybe, steals it and gets a decision win. And if Cheeto was going to win, it probably would be by decision.
Yeah. The one thing that really concerns me is his loss to Corey Sandhagen, someone who is similar stylistically to O'Malley, and both of them being long and rangy strikers, 5'11", with knockout power. So he really got dominated in that fight by a striker. He was taken down for over 15 minutes of control time. How alarming is that to you? I know when I was going back and doing research for this card, that really stuck out to me.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's kind of like why a lot of people were upset that Cheeto got the title shot, because even though he won his last fight, he definitely doesn't deserve a title shot the way he looked against Corey Sandhagen. I was very disappointed. Headed into that fight, and I thought it could go either way. But I thought it was very clear that Corey Sandhagen was the much better fighter in all aspects of the game. And, this is why we're going to see Corey Sandhagen maybe fighting the number 1 contenders match in his next fight. But that's definitely alarming, and that's another reason why I'm going to favor Sugar Sean O'Malley, because Cheeto did not look good against Corey Sandhagen, and he's got a similar build and a similar style to Sugar Sean, and I think that's going to pose nightmares for Cheeto.
Yeah. So now we have the co-main event matchup. Dustin Poirier taking on Benoit St.Denis. This is a fantastic lightweight contest. Poirier coming off a knockout loss to Justin Gaethje. He wants to get back in the win column. He has never lost 2 fights in a row in his career. He's taking on Benoit St.Denis, who's won 5 fights in a row since moving down to lightweight, finishing all opponents. St.Denis has finished every single one of his professional victories, and Dustin Poirier is known for a guy who is known for being able to get guys out of there on the feet and on the ground. I don't see this one going the distance at all. What about you?
Yeah, I think this is definitely going to be a finish either way. I really, really like St.Denis. Honestly, heading into this card, this is the fight that's got me the most excited because I think between the two opponents, these guys are the closest. I could really, really see it going either way. You know, Benoit St.Denis is on this tear, and I really, really like his potential, and I think at some point he can be a contender for a guy like Islam Makhachev. You know, with his background, being, fighting in wars and, being in a military base back in France, he's basically a trained killer. And, he's only been training for MMA for, a short period of time. And to see the progression he's made in just this short period of time is nothing short, but it is spectacular. And I really, really like St.Denis. I really like how he fights. I think he could kind of go either way. I think he could strike. I think he's got great grappling as well. He's got 4 KO wins and 9 submission wins. I think Dustin Poirier will probably try to keep the fight on the feet and try to win the fight early on. So I think what's going to happen is I think Poirier is going to start off, maybe win the first or second round. I think he's going to outstrike him. But I think as the second and third round, carries on, I think St.Denis is going to start to wear on him. He's going to handle the, the early, explosion by Dustin Poirier. And I think St.Denis is going to win the fight by third round submission.
Yeah, I like Benoit St.Denis. He is certainly the most surging contender right now at 155 pounds. And like you were saying, a fight against Islam Makhachev would be something that all fight fans, want to see, and is a great stylistic matchup. But he's got to get through the contender in the former interim champion in Poirier. One thing for me when I was looking at this fight was that St.Denis has never been scheduled for 5 rounds, but Dustin Poirier is someone who's been in these title fights and 5-round main events, almost every single fight. His experience is up there with some of the best. He's fought the best competition the sport has to offer. 2 knockout wins over Conor McGregor, a knockout win over Eddie Alvarez. Dustin Poirier is as good as it comes and a future Hall of Famer. So if Benoit St.Denis can get through him, it really says a lot about his potential moving forward. Also, like you were saying, on the feet, Poirier is going to be the better boxer. I think with his hands, he is better. In St.Denis' lone loss in the UFC to Zaleski Dos Santos, he really got pieced up on the feet when Dos Santos stuffed his takedown attempts. Now, since moving down to 155 pounds, he's got a physical strength advantage against a lot more opponents than he did at 170. So I think he might be able to get Poirier to the ground, like you're saying, for a submission. I don't think he knocks Poirier out. I think as the longer that the fight goes, I believe it favors Poirier, and if it stays on the feet, I believe it favors Poirier. So it's going to be interesting whether St.Denis gets into an ego battle and tries to get into a back-and-forth brawl with Dustin, to prove who's a better striker. I don't think he should really do that. How do you see this fight playing out game plan-wise?
I definitely think St.Denis is definitely going to want to finish this fight early. And I think Poirier is obviously going to want it to go into to probably the later rounds. And I think you made a great point. We've seen a lot of fighters when they transition to that 3-round fights to 5-round fights, they just don't have the gas tank. We just seen it last week with Shamal Gaziev. We've seen how he kind of gassed out as the rounds, carried on. So we got to see how Benoit St.Denis deals with that. See if he's got the gas tank to keep up with these guys. But honestly, I think what's going to happen is I think Poirier is going to come in there. I think the first 2 rounds, he's going to really, really try to just outstrike him. And I think what's going to happen is I think St.Denis is going to try to get him to the ground in the 3rd round. And I think what he's going to do is I think he's going to get the submission win in the 3rd round, and he's not going to allow it to get a 4th or 5th. But on the flip side, if he does allow it to get to a 4th and 5th, I think that's where it starts to favor Poirier. And if it gets to that 4th round, I definitely think I wouldn't be surprised to see Poirier ended up finishing with like a decision win.
So as we look at the betting odds, Benoit St.Denis is over a 2-1 favorite here. Dustin Poirier, like we've been saying, has a wealth of experience. Does that really surprise you that Poirier is entering this fight as an underdog?
It doesn't surprise me because one guy's coming off of a loss. He got finished by Justin Gaethje. While Justin Gaethje is a great fighter, there's nothing wrong with being finished by him. But he's coming off of a loss, and St-Denis been on this tear, and he looks like he may be the future. I guess you could say it's a little surprising, given, Poirier's track record and his accomplishments. You think a guy like him would warrant to at least be a favorite against a guy like St-Denis, who, yes, he's got, a couple good wins, but he hasn't really fought a top contender where, like you said, Poirier has been fighting top contenders for many, many years now consecutively. So, maybe Poirier should have been the favorite, but I'm not surprised that they went with St-Denis because I think everybody sees what we see, that St-Denis is on this tear, and he's definitely probably one of, if not the best, upcoming 155 prospects and potential title contenders for Islam. And it'll be nice to see Islam have some new competition because 155's kind of been basically ran by the same 3 or 4 guys. So it's nice to have new contenders in that division.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with Benoit St-Denis, he is one of the most up-and-coming contenders in the division. But like I said, I don't see him finishing this fight by knockout. Dustin Poirier is hard to finish himself. I know Justin Gaethje just knocked him out, but he's not historically a fighter that can get out of there, relatively quickly. So I like your pick, and I'm going to go St-Denis with submission in the 3rd round. I like that pick.
Yeah, that's definitely I think a good bet. And now we get to transition to finally Michael Venom Page going up against Kevin Holland. And this is something a lot of MMA fans have been dreaming about, of what would it be like to see a guy like Michael Venom Page, his exciting style, go to the UFC. Now, it's just unfortunate that it took so long for us to get here, and he is a little on the older side. But they're going to try to fast-track him into the division, and they already put him in with a ranked fighter like Kevin Holland. So how do you see this fight going?
These are two very athletic strikers. Both of them are very tall for 170 pounds. Page is going to be, the better technical kickboxer, but Kevin Holland is very tough. The matchup, when you go back and look at these guys' record that stuck out to me, was Stephen Thompson versus Kevin Holland. In that matchup, Kevin Holland didn't take the fight to the ground in that 5-round main event, and he kind of really fought Stephen Thompson's fight. Stephen Thompson is a very similar fighter, kickboxing-wise, to Michael Venom Page. So I think that really might play a factor in this one. I hope Holland's learned from those mistakes and takes this fight to the ground, or at least attempts to at some point. I think that Michael Venom Page is going to come in here and really try and put on a show and make a statement, but Holland's hard to get out of there. I like Michael Page by decision, but I think this is going to be an awesome contest that showcases both of their striking technique and ability.
Yeah, and honestly, I have it going the same way. I think Michael Venom Page is going to win by decision. I think he's just going to land more strikes on Kevin Holland. And yes, if Kevin Holland's going to want to win it, he's definitely going to have to take it to the ground because Michael Venom Page's unique striking. It's just going to be way too much, and there's no way Kevin Holland's going to be able to deal with that and be able to win on the feet. And we've seen Michael Venom Page. His striking really, really hurts people. It really, really changes people. You got people that, TKO people. He really puts people in the hospital. And I would definitely favor Michael Venom Page in it. I wouldn't be surprised even if Michael Venom Page got the finish and got the KO win. But, yeah, I would definitely say Michael Venom Page is going to win by decision. And it's funny that you brought up Wonder Boy Stephen Thompson because, honestly, after Michael Venom Page gets this win that I think he's going to get, I honestly think that would be the next perfect matchup to see two guys with a similar karate style going up against each other, and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson against Michael Venom Page. So I got Michael Venom Page winning by decision, and I would like to see him against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in the next matchup.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I'd love to see that matchup too. I don't think you could make a better matchup in the division right now for those two guys. But like you were saying with the striking of Venom Page, in his last fight versus Yamauchi, he got him out of there with a leg kick early, and I think it was about 23 seconds, and he broke the leg of his opponent. When he knocked out Cyborg Santos, he caved in his skull with with a flying knee. So this is a guy who can end the fight in any instant and at any moment. So it's certainly going to be a great, entertaining matchup.
Yeah, either way, whoever wins this matchup is definitely going to be one of the most exciting fights on the card.
Yeah.
So now, we transition to our next matchup. We got Gilbert Burns going up against Jack Della, JDM. How do you see this fight going?
Well, Jack, when he fought Basil Hafiz to split decision, it kind of showed that he did have holes in his game. He could be taken down. Now, Hafiz fought that fight on short notice. He really didn't have a full gas tank to him, but he's going to be fighting a very credentialed grappler this weekend in Gilbert Burns, who's a former jiu-jitsu world champion and someone who's known for getting fights to the ground and finishing them early, like we saw with Neil Magny. So it's really a classic stylistic matchup for me with striker versus grappler. Jack's younger. He's really wants everything that Gilbert's had. Gilbert's had the title shots. He's been the contender. He's had the interviews and the recognition, and that's what Jack really wants. I like Jack in this fight. I think that if Gilbert doesn't get the fight to the ground, he's going to have some significant problems. But at the same rate, Jack could, give up his back and get submitted in this one. It's really a close fight, and like I said, a stylistic clash.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is definitely a close fight that could go either way. Jack Della is undefeated in the UFC. But the thing is, he's only got one ranked win. And he hasn't looked too good in the wins that he has won. A lot of them been by split decisions. So he's getting these wins, but they're not looking too well. It's like he should be fighting for contendership, but the reason why he's not is because he's not winning the fights in the fashion that he should be winning them. And, if he gets a win against Gilbert Burns, there's going to be nothing more you can say about him. I definitely think age is going to play a factor in it. We see, divisions from 170 and below, when there's like a 10-year age gap, most of the time the younger fighter does win. So I got Jack Della winning by decision. I think he's going to outstrike him. And it's unfortunate for Gilbert Burns because he was on his way to a next title shot before he lost to Bilal. Now, I know he got hurt in that fight, but I think, his career is dwindling down. He's still, a great fighter, but I don't think he's a title contender at this point anymore. And I think, JDM is going to win this fight, and he's going to put himself in contendership. Obviously, at this division, you got Bilal. I think he's going to get the next title shot. He's definitely more than deserving at this division. He's on a crazy fight win streak, so I think Bilal gets the next title shot. And I think what they should do is if Jack Della gets this win, maybe have Jack Della against Rakhmonov for number one contendership.
I like that fight. I want to see Rakhmonov fight Colby Covington, to be honest with you. I think Rakhmonov, based on talent, has earned the opportunity before the rest of this crop of next wave of young fighters. Who I would like to see Jack fight next is Ian Gary. Those two guys would be a really great matchup, more of a pure boxer in Jack versus, the kickboxing, karate style in Ian Gary, who's 6'3" at 170 pounds. He's a great athlete. But so's Jack. Jack really impressed me in his fight with Randy Brown. He was able to knock Randy Brown down in that matchup and then actually got a submission. He's not known as being a submission guy, and don't look for him to even get to try and take this fight anywhere near the ground this weekend. But he's a very interesting prospect for me at 170, and he has a massive amount of potential.
Yeah, and I don't mind, with your prediction. I wouldn't mind if they went that way either. There's nothing wrong with that. That would be an exciting fight. The only thing that steers me away from that is I feel like Rakhmonov has to either get the title shot or a number one contenders match fight next. That's the only place he could go. He's so talented. I honestly think he's the best 170 in the world. It's just he just hasn't got the title yet. And obviously Bilal has put his time in and been in it longer, so obviously Bilal has to get the title shot first. But I think it's just a matter of a time, and we're just in a waiting period. And once Rakhmonov gets that title shot, I think he's going to win. I think he could beat anybody at that division. But the only problem with me is him fighting Colby Covington is I think Colby Covington doesn't deserve to be in the number one contenders match. So the only reason why I would like to see Rakhmonov and Jack fight is because I think those would be the only two guys optional for a number one contenders match. And who else can Rakhmonov fight for a number one contenders match? Then maybe a Jack Della, or maybe if we could see a Usman maybe if Usman wants to fight a number one contenders match, that could be a good guy for Rakhmonov as well.
Yeah, Usman would have to come back down. I know he just filled in at 185. And another guy, Khamzat Chimaev, I'd love to see what the UFC is doing with him right now and what their plans are moving forward with the Chechnyan phenom. You know, when he was coming up, I thought he was the best fighter I've ever seen at 170 pounds talent-wise. And Rakhmonov is right behind him. Rakhmonov might have better striking than Chimaev even. So that would be a matchup that I'd be very interested in seeing as well. But as far as this Jack Maddalena fight and Gilbert Burns is the underdog in this fight at online sports books. What do you make of Jack being the favorite here?
Honestly, I was surprised. I think Gilbert Burns should be the favorite, even though I do think Jack is going to win. I think Jack hasn't done enough to be favored over a guy like Gilbert Burns. And, you know, besides the Bilal fight, you know, Gilbert Burns has looked pretty good in a lot of the other fights before that. And, you know, he was injured in the Bilal fight, and he just fought, you know, consecutively 3 times pretty quickly. So I really thought Gilbert Burns would be the favorite here. But like I said, I do think Jack's going to win, and I think Jack's going to, you know, move up the rankings. And like you said, maybe fight an Ian Gary or someone up there high in the rankings.
Yeah, I'd like to see any of those matchups. The one that you threw out would be good too.
So now we move to the last card of the main card, which is Peter Yan against Song Yadong. This is definitely a matchup of 2 great strikers. Yadong winning his last 2 fights against Ricky Simon and Chris Gutierrez. You know, Yadong, you know, did lose to Corey Sandhagen, who Corey Sandhagen lost to Peter Yan, who he's fighting. You know, and Peter Yan used to be the class of the division. You know, and basically ever since the Sterling fight, it seems like he hasn't been the same. You know, losing 4 out of the last fights, and he's on a 3-fight losing streak. But honestly, a lot of his fights have been close, including the Sean O'Malley fight, which is kind of controversial. Could have went either way. And then the loss to Merab, I mean, it's Merab. I mean, Merab is on a tear, and losing to Merab, there's no shame in that. So honestly, I really think it's going to be a battle of 2 great strikers, and I think Peter Yan's going to win by decision.
Yeah, Yan has certainly faced the cream of the crop. There's no wrong with losing to Merab, like you were saying. The thing that really sticks out to me in this one, 4-1 in his last 5 is Song Yadong. That loss to Corey Sandhagen that you brought up was due to doctor's cut. There was a stoppage due to cut, and so it wasn't like he got completely taken out of there. You know, Song Yadong trains at Team Alpha Male with Uriah Faber at one of the best camps in the world. I'm sure he's taking this fight very seriously. But he is facing a former champion in Peter Yan, who has faced some of the best competition in the sport. So it's going to be a good fight. Very similar in height and reach for these guys. You know, I think that Yadong gets it done. I think the mileage on the clock of Peter Yan, I think he's been through so many wars in fights that have taken a lot out of him. Even before he got to the UFC, he was in, you know, a battle of rivalry with Magomed Magomedov over in the Middle East, so in split fights with him. So this is a guy who has a lot of experience, but Song Yadong's coming on at the right time, and I think he gets the job done in this fight. I'm going to say decision. I think Peter Yan's going to be tough enough to get through this contest. I don't think anyone really can finish Peter Yan, but I've got Song Yadong in this one.
And, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see it go that way either. You know, both great strikers. Like you said, Sean Yadong, you know, besides that doctor stoppage against Corey Sandhagen, he's been kind of on a tear. And if it wasn't for that doctor stoppage and that fight, you know, who knows what would have happened. Mm-hmm. So, obviously, you know, but that would be unfortunate if it does go that way for Peter Yan, for him to have another loss. You know, I don't know where he'd go from here because, you know, he definitely drop and skyrocket down the rankings in that division. So that would be unfortunate for a guy like Peter Yan, but you know, it is Song Yadong's time. You know, he's at the perfect age to hit his prime. And it's nice to see a guy like China, you know, potentially maybe competing for the belt. And we never seen a guy from China ever capture the title. Yeah, so, you know, that would be a great storyline if he can win this fight. And, you know, if he wins this fight, you know, he's definitely going to be competing with some of the guys at the top of the division that we mentioned before. Honestly, if he wins this fight, I wouldn't be surprised, and I would like to see maybe him fight a Chito Vera if Chito loses to Sean O'Malley.
Yeah, maybe an Umar who we saw get a win last weekend as well. would be in there. But you said you liked Peter Yan in this matchup.
By decision, yes.
By decision, and I have Yadong by decision. Yeah, so this one is actually as close as it gets at online sports books. It was even money to start the week. Since the press conference today, Peter Yan has become a slight favorite at -125. Does that surprise you at all, betting perspective? I think this is a very competitive matchup, and the recent losing streak from Yan is certainly going to be alarming to some bettors.
Yeah, I agreed. I don't think there's no surprising with the bet. It's a fight that could go either way, so I wouldn't be surprised with either or fighter being the favorite according to the betting odds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, as we look at the rest of this card here, there are some great matchups. We've got a top 5, top 10 matchup here between Jalton Almeida and Curtis Blaydes. Curtis Blaydes is a great grappler, and so is Jalton Almeida, very similar in styles. Almeida just fought Derek Lewis, had over 20 minutes of control time in that fight, but couldn't find a submission. Blaydes has suffered some knockout losses in the past, but he's also knocked guys out like Chris Daukaus, Chris Daukaus. So I think that Blaydes has a legitimate chance in this one. I'm from Illinois. Blaydes is from Chicago. I got to ride with my guy, Curtis Blaydes, in this matchup. And get this, I think he gets the job done by knockout. I think if Jalton Almeida can't get this fight to the ground, he's going to get exposed on the feet with his stand-up. And Curtis Blaydes has been in there with Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis, some of the heaviest hitters that the sport's ever seen. So I'll take experience in Curtis Blaydes in this prelim matchup.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a great matchup, a battle of two great grapplers. Like you said, I think Curtis Blaydes is a little bit better on the feet. So if he's going to want to win the matchup, it's definitely going to have to be with striking. And I think Jalton Almeida is going to have to win it on the ground. Honestly, for my money, I think Jalton Almeida may be the best grappler in the heavyweight division. And I'm a really, really huge fan of his game, and he really has impressed me. I understand a lot of people were disappointed and didn't think his victory against Derek Lewis was, really, really good. They thought it was kind of lackluster. But a win's a win. And I thought he looked really, really good in his other fights as well. And for my money, I think he's the best upcoming heavyweight prospect in the division. I think Jalton Almeida is actually going to win the fight by submission in the third round. I know he is kind of small weight-wise for the division, but I think his grappling is so next level. And I know there is some decent grapplers at the heavyweight division, including Curtis Blaydes. But I'm going to give Jalton Almeida the win by submission in the third round. And I think Jalton Almeida is going to be fighting Tom Aspinall for the interim heavyweight championship next.
Yeah, that would be a great matchup. I don't think that one would go well for Jalton Almeida against Tom Aspinall. But as far as this weekend's fight's concerned, I think that Curtis Blaydes really needs this win. He's been a guy that has been on the cusp of title opportunities. He's been in these number one contenders fights in the past, but then he's either made, maybe mental mistakes at times, staying on the feet with Francis Ngannou or some people when he should have been going for takedowns. And, he just suffered a loss to Pavlovich. And I think that he's going to rebound in this one. And honestly, I think that he can get Almeida to the ground. And I don't know if Almeida could get him to the ground. I haven't seen Almeida put together submissions off his back. I know that he is a very credentialed Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, but getting submissions off your back at heavyweight is certainly something that we don't see very often. So Curtis Blaydes, to me, is the way to go in this matchup, and I really like this heavyweight matchup. But here's the thing, though. This is another grappler versus grappler, so I think that this fight really is going to take place on the feet more often than not because they're going to negate each other's strengths. So that's kind of why I'm favoring Blaydes in this matchup.
Yeah, and like I said, I could see it going either way. This is another one of those fights that's very, very close. And I know you mentioned, in MMA, the word gatekeeper is not bad. And it kind of feels like Curtis Blaydes has been like a gatekeeper for title contention. It seems like he's just short of being, in those title matches, but he's good enough to beat everybody else. And it seems like if you could beat Curtis Blaydes, you're fighting in a contenders match next. We've seen that with Sergey Pavlovich. He beat Curtis Blaydes, fighting for the title next. We see, they're saying if Jalton Almeida wins this fight, Tom Aspinall said he wouldn't be surprised if he's fighting, Jalton Almeida versus Aspinall next. So it seems like if you get past Curtis Blaydes, you're fighting for a title. But now Curtis Blaydes could actually, on the flip side, win one of these matchups. Who knows? We haven't seen him fight Aspinall yet, so maybe they could see, maybe they'll push him in as the next guy for the interim title, because Aspinall's obviously not going to fight John Jones, so there's going to have to be some heavyweight that's going to fight Tom Aspinall. So I think this fight's going to have a lot to do with where they decide to go.
Yeah, I'd like to see Aspinall and Jones. That's the matchup to be made, in my opinion. Credentialed champion, greatest of all time, versus the guy who's coming up and looks like he can do it all. But as far as Aspinall and Blaydes is concerned, they did fight a couple years ago. That fight ended with Tom Aspinall blowing his knee out in the first round in like 20 seconds. So it wasn't much of a fight. And, I'd like to see them run that back to, see who really is the better, heavyweight fighter there. But I like Blaydes this weekend. Is there any prelim fight that really sticks out to you on the rest of the card? I mean, I like Pedro Munhoz-Kyler Phillips. That's an interesting matchup to me. I think Munoz's experience warrants him being a favorite, but he's actually a 2-1 betting underdog in that fight. What do you think of maybe that matchup?
Honestly, I think Pedro Munhoz, I'm actually surprised that, when I went on UFC that he's not the favorite. I understand that Kyler Phillips is coming off of 2 wins, but they're not to ranked opponents. He hasn't really beat anybody. So I don't really understand the Kyler Phillips, hype and why he's projected to win. I think Pedro Munhoz, he's not highly ranked, but he's still a ranked fighter for a reason. And I think Munhoz is is going to be the better grappler, and I think he's still the better grappler, even though Kyler Phillips is a great grappler as well. But I think Pedro Munhoz is going to win this fight by decision, and I think he's going to control most of the ground game.
Yeah, and like you were saying, Kyler Phillips is a good grappler in his own right. He's a very physically strong athlete. I think he's going to be able to take Munhoz to the ground. I don't think he's going to be able to submit him. I think Munhoz might have more submissions on the ground than Kyler Phillips, but at the same time, Munhoz has heavy, heavy hands. We saw in his fight with Cody Garbrandt and then other wars he's been in like Chito Vera. He will stand in exchange with anybody, and I think he wants to keep this fight standing against Kyler Phillips, and if he does, I'd like him to get the win in this matchup, and I think he could even win by knockout. I'd have him by decision, but with Pedro's heavy hands, look for him to try and get a stoppage on the feet more likely than on the ground in this one.
Yeah, I definitely think Pedro Munhoz can win either way, either on the feet or on the ground. But this should be a close fight. I just don't think Kyler Phillips deserves to be the favorite in this matchup at all. So I'm definitely going to go with Pedro Munhoz as well. Another fight on the prelims, you got Matias Gamrot going up against Rafael Dos Anjos. This might be the most one-sided fight on the card. I think Gamrot's going to win this easily. He's like 1 or 2 fights away from contendership. He did beat Arman Tsoukian, but unfortunately his title run ended when he lost to Beneil Dariush. But I think he's going to bounce back. I think he's going to win this fight pretty decisively, maybe by KO, if I had to predict how he's going to win it. And I would like to see him maybe get a rematch against Dariush, but he's definitely going to win this matchup easily. And if it's not against Dariush, maybe put Gamrot against the loser of Poirier and St.Denis. But Gamrot's definitely 1 or 2 fights away from fighting for contendership again.
Yeah, and Gamrot to me is one of the most energetic grapplers on the whole roster. When you look at a guy like Merab Dvalishvili who can shoot takedown after takedown after takedown, Gamrot's really cut from that same cloth. And in this one, he's going to be facing a former champion in Rafael Dos Anjos. I think that's the big thing that he wants to add to his resume here, having that win over a former champion and someone who's going to be a UFC Hall of Famer in Dos Anjos. But Dos Anjos, as we saw in his fight with Moicano, on that Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal card, the co-main event that went 5 rounds, he has good hands still, and he's willing to stand and trade with anybody. Gamrot is not somebody like we saw with his fight with Jalen Turner. He can get hit on the feet. He's going to be facing a southpaw again in Dos Anjos like he was with Jalen Turner in that matchup. But I think that Dos Anjos is going to be more competitive in this one than people think. I don't think that Gamrot gets the finish here. I don't think that he submits the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt Dos Anjos. And on the feet, I think he's going to have a tougher time than expected. But I think that Gamrot is going to be able to grind out a decision victory here with control time against the cage. and then also mixing in takedowns at times. But I think that Dos Anjos will scramble back to his feet, and we'll have a really back and forth, grimy, gritty, competitive contest.
So it sounds like we both got Gamrot winning, but you think it's going to be much closer than I think it'll be.
Yeah, I think it'll be a decision, and you just got to give it to Dos Anjos. He is a former champion and somebody who's good in every facet of the game. So I think he's going to be hard to finish, and Gamrot's not really been going in there and steamrolling guys and getting them out of there, quickly recently. So I think a decision from Gamrot is probably the safest bet this weekend.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes that way either. Obviously, I got him winning by KO in the second or third round. But, yes, like you said, Dos Anjos is a former champion, and obviously, he is a great fighter as well. And wouldn't be surprised to see him, finish the fight and get through it, at least have it be a decision. Now, I know usually with UFC cards, we usually don't talk about early prelims, but I at least want to ask you, I know you were mentioning there's a particular heavyweight guy making his debut in the early prelims that you're excited about. So I figured you want to mention that.
Yeah, and there's even new news about him. So Robles de Spain is going to make his UFC debut. He's 4-0. He finished 3 fights in a row in under 21 seconds of combined fight time. So that means he's knocking dudes out in under 10 seconds on the regional scene. He's a former Taekwondo medalist in the Olympics. He won a bronze medal, and I believe it was 2012 in the Olympics. So this is a guy he's 35 years old. He actually just broke the UFC reach record this week. 87 inches on reach, breaks Stefan Struve and John Jones, shatters it by 3 inches. It was 84.5. Now 87-inch reach is the record for the UFC. He's 6'7". He's somebody who has lethal knockout power, and he's fighting a guy in Josh Parisian who is one of these guys who test up-and-coming prospects with talent. He's along the lines of Jake Collier, Jared Vandera, kind of guys like that. I think this is going to be one that people should be putting money on. Minus 340 right now for Robles de Spain. So what do you think about his potential and talent maybe coming to the UFC?
Yeah, I'm definitely very, very excited. With that length and that division, he's going to be giving a lot of guys problems, and I would be scared of him if I was anybody in the heavyweight division. And for me, the one guy I also want to see on the early prelims is Michael Pereira. He's on a 6-fight win streak. I love his striking. I'm not sure why he's not ranked. But I do think, the division of 185, I think middleweight right now, a lot of people may not agree with me, but I think 185 is the deepest division in the UFC. I think if you look at all the fighters at 185, there's so many great up-and-coming guys like a Bo Nickel. There's so many guys at that division that compete. We even seen a guy like Joe Pfeiffer. Unfortunately, didn't look that good against a right opponent against Hermanson. But there's a lot of guys at that division, so maybe that's why, Pereira is not, ranked. But I can't wait to see Michael Pereira. I think he's going to win this fight easily, and I think he's going to be fighting a ranked opponent next. He's got to be at this point. He'll be on a 7-fight win streak, and I think he'll get a ranked opponent next, maybe against a Jack Hermanson or maybe a Roman Dolidze.
Yeah, like you're saying, this is one of the deepest divisions in the UFC, and that Jack Hermanson versus Joe Pfeiffer fight really proves it. Nobody really gave Jack a chance in that contest, but he had gone against guys like Kelvin Gastelum and Sean Strickland and really putting in, that experience and won that matchup. You've also got guys like Kai Barallo out there at 185 who would be an interesting matchup for Pereira. I want to see Pereira eventually fight a top-level grappler. I want to see if he can stop takedowns. That's really interesting to me. But as far as this fight's concerned, Michael Oleksiejczuk is a very tough and game fighter. He's got knockout power. We've seen him win as an underdog in the UFC in the past. And Michael Pereira is unorthodox in his striking. He has a fan-friendly style. He goes in there and has done backflips in the cage on people and running off the wall and throwing kicks. But he's going to want to keep it tight and focused in this one because Oleksiejczuk does have a big left hand and he has knockout power. So this is going to be a good contest, and I don't think it's going to go to the ground either. I think these are two guys who primarily are going to stand and trade, and one that fight fans should tune in for early.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a great fight. And like we said, there's not one bad fight on this card. Every single fight I'm going to be excited to see. And I can't wait for Sunday for us to break down the recap and for us to, see exactly how this card plays out.
Yeah, and I know we've been giving card ratings out. Should we wait to do that until after the card, or should we do a pre-card rating?
We could do a pre-card rating and then compare it to what our post-card rating and see if it's better or worse.
Yeah, I think this is a 10. I don't know how you can put together a card really better than this when it rivals UFC 300 coming next month. When people are debating which one's better between UFC 300 and 299, that certainly speaks to the depth and talent on this card. So I'm so excited for this weekend. This is one of the biggest fights that we've had in quite some time.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think you could have a better and more perfect card. So I would definitely give it a 9.9. You can never give anything a 10 because nothing's ever perfect. But I guess the closest you can get to perfect is what this card is.
Yeah. Which fight are you most excited for?
Definitely the Benoit St.Denis against Dustin Poirier, because I think that's going to have a lot to do with where the title shot's going to go. And I'm very, very excited to see Benoit St.Denis go up against a top opponent. And I can't wait for the world to recognize him as a top contender.
Yeah, one thing before we go on Benoit St.Denis, I wanted to ask you this before, but say Justin Gaethje gets the job done versus Max Holloway at UFC 300. Would you like to see Benoit St.Denis fight Justin Gaethje, and the winner of that be the next bona fide contender for Islam Makhachev?
Yeah, I think that could be a great match because obviously they already said the winner of Arman Tsoukian and Charles Oliveira is going to be the next opponent for Islam. So obviously, you're going to have a waiting period anyway. So yeah, that makes sense. Give the winner of that to Islam, and then you have another number one contenders match against Justin Gaethje if he wins, and against Benoit St.Denis. And ironically, both of them would have wins over Dustin Poirier.
Yeah. So certainly many fights to look out for this weekend. Thanks for joining us, fight fans. We'll catch you we'll record the episode on Sunday. It'll be out to you guys on Monday or Tuesday. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
See ya.